Well, speaking of that man, he's orchestrated the whole lot of this, the new recruiting, the people have decided to delist, etc., and what they needed to go and which direction they needed to head. Mark Harvey, the coach of the Fremantle Dockers, joins us on the program. Happy New Year, Mark, and thanks for your time.
You too, Brad, and hope I haven't put on as many kilos as you have.
I don't think so. But you know what? When you're away from home, it's not easy, Harps. You know that it's not easy. It's not easy.
We've got to find excuses, don't we?
Yeah, exactly right. How are the boys shaping up? Because you identified last year that they probably weren't as fit, or they were fit, but they weren't as fit as you wanted them to be. How are they tracking at this time?
No, they're tracking. Look, without going into too much detail, they're tracking. I mean, just before the break, we measured them on some of the fitness aspects that we're looking for, and they've just been tested again this morning, and they're holding their own at the moment. It would be fair to say after 7 or 8 weeks before pre-season, before Christmas that was, that the guys were just starting to feel a little bit and needed to break over Christmas, and now it gives us sort of the next 4 or 6 weeks to really get back into it and go beyond what we did prior to Christmas.
Mark, a couple of players that had injury problems last year that have been obviously working hard. Hazelby, Headland and Hayden, how are they all travelling?
Yeah, no, look, they've had uninterrupted pre-seasons. The interesting part about our side and how it evolves this year is where I play those guys. And they probably won't necessarily play in the areas that people may think they might play in. For instance, I might even consider a guy like Hazelby playing halfback flank, for instance, at times, just to get him through initially the first couple of games and see how he evolves there after a knee reconstruction. It's those sort of aspects that makes it a little bit unpredictable going into season 2009.
And have young blokes come along? You've drafted some new kids. How have they shaped up? And more importantly, the likes of Palmer and Ibbotson and the boys that carried you a fair way last year towards the end of the season, all shaping up well?
Yeah, it's the transformation. If you go back and have a look at a few photos of those kids in their first year when they first come down to the club, sort of only 12 months ago now, it is phenomenal what football does to young players, particularly in the professional environment, from a physical aspect and also from a football aspect. The transformation's enormous, and you even pit those guys against the guys that we just recruited, and they sort of look like they're men, but they're still boys, if you know what I mean. So. Look, it's an interesting phase for us, particularly in the next 3 months, on the back of getting 14 players, and we've only had them basically a month, and what we can do to those guys in the next 3 to 6 months to get them up to speed with some sort of AFL aspiration.
You had to make those changes. There's no two ways about that. Now, are you happy with the buzzword, your core group of players? You've still got enough there to dotter these boys around your group of players that you expect to carry most of the load.
Look, we've certainly got the guys that can, what you call the franchise players. We've certainly got a few of those. It's always be good to have 1 or 2 more of those particular guys. The real improvement's going to come from guys like, Kipper Bradley, Stephen Dodd, Gilmore, Peake, Shammer, these sort of guys. We need them to really evolve and take over areas of the ground that we need them to take over.
Ryan Crowley played a pretty big part in different areas. He was a player that you could play in different spots. How's he travelling?
Well, Wayne's a bit like a night watchman. We use him for various jobs. He's learning to be creative on top of nullifying. He's probably our top 3 or 4 from a endurance aspect. So I'm going to ask him to do other things beyond what he has done in years gone by. He's certainly a player that can adapt to that, and that's always a great strength of a player, that you can use him in different positions to just fill the void at times.
So what are the areas you've got to improve in well, one, maybe the culture and all that, but what sort of things are you really pressing on your players that they need to improve to be in that top 8 and in maybe the top 4?
Well, when you have a look at the top sides, they're very efficient going inside their forward 50. They make minimal mistakes, and the good sides capitalise on the mistakes from the opposition. It's all those sort of things, the direction of your play, not the over-possession that you're necessarily looking for, the direction with how quickly you do move the ball, and really to have smart players that can capitalise on anything. That's the main trait. And what you've got to do is hopefully internally fast-track players that need to become smarter in what is a ever-changing game. I mean, we're starting to see different sides play different ways. If you have a look at the grand final last year, Geelong wanted to play through the corridor, Hawthorn liked the zone. So, yeah, we're facing a little bit of a change in the game at the moment.
Harves, with the big changeover of numbers in your squad, have you noticed a difference on the training track? Is it more enthusiastic? As we all know what it's like. I mean, pre-season doesn't get any easier as you get older.
I think, Brad, what happens is when your older players retire and move on, it gives an opportunity for the group to express itself. And I think that's what I'm finding. I'm finding guys that have been around for a while, probably sometimes a little bit intimidated to come out of themselves on the training track or perhaps even in the game. And I'm starting to see that happen, even at training. So hopefully that, moves on into a game situation whereby, you need plenty of direction and plenty of smartness from a leadership area when you're out there and the pressure's on.
Matthew Pavlich, is he sort of putting his influence out there in the leadership area?
He is, and I think I've stated, Wayne, and as the years go on, you'll see Matthew really evolve, not only as a leader, but also as a person, and what he demands of the playing group. It'd be fair to say he's playing a couple of kilos, or he's training a couple of kilos lighter at this stage, and where that takes him will depend upon the team needs. But as we know, Matthew's one of those gifted players that can have an input no matter where he plays.
Any hangovers from post-season surgery or anything like that? And coming into your first round of the pre-season cup, we're going to have a fairly healthy squad out there?
Yeah, no, we haven't had, to this date, any sort of soft tissue problems. So the list of 30-odd that we got prior to the draft are all remaining well and fully equipped. The real tune-up comes now in January, February, March when you start to play those early games and see how their bodies hold up after that. So it's always a balancing act when you change the list or when you change it so dramatically, and then the introduction of the young players and them naturally earning their spot just to carry the load of the whole season will be interesting.
So we're just talking to Greg Shippard, who's coaches of the Bushrangers, as you are well aware of, and Clarkie, and we're talking about the philosophy of the Australian selectors. What's your philosophy going into the pre-season cup? What do you want to derive out of it?
The philosophy is to implement all your game plan strategies. Now, naturally, you need a fair bit of experience to grab hold of that early. Depending on how far we go with the NAB Cup, and naturally you have 6 or 8 on the bench depending on the temperature in these NAB Cup games will depend on, and naturally there'll be the experimentation of where our second year players go and how far they can go beyond what they did in their first year, to see the 5th and 6th years, to see whether they can step up to the mark and play more pressure situations, and then the natural progression of whether a first year player can actually hold his own at this level.
A couple of quick ones. So you played it both all over the ground. Harves are a super player. Down back, the rush behinds. Happy with the trial of the free kick for rush behind?
Absolutely. I think it's an indictment on the game. I think it's a way of retreating. And every other area in the ground where you either do it deliberate, it's a penalty.
And of course you brought Barry Mitchell on board, and he coached Box Hill last year. Would have had an intricate knowledge of the Hawthorn rolling flood type thing that they play, or zone. Has he brought much to the table thus far?
He has, and Brad, you would remember Barry as a player, and he was a guy that had played in the midfield with Greg Williams and Jared Hill and those sort of guys, and so he's obviously a very smart coach in his own right, let alone being at Hawthorn for the last 12 months. But he certainly brought a lot of knowledge, and he's in charge of an area that's obviously very important to where we head, which is the midfield and stoppages and how we evolve. So he certainly brought a lot of different philosophies to the table, and now it's a matter of the core group of midfielders to take hold of it.
And the last one from us is the one that we get SMS'd the most about, Chris Tarrant. How's he shaping?
Yeah, Chris is, as I said, he would be in our top 10 in, from a fitness aspect, which is a credit to him. Mm-hmm. So, once again, Brad, he's a guy that I might look at a different role with. I think that what happens is when you play as a forward for a long period of time, the pressure and maybe even at times a bit of a staleness that can come with it. Sometimes you just need to give them a bit of a mental break. So you might find Chris playing in a different position as time goes on.
Well, good on you, Harves. Thanks for your time. We really appreciate it on Sports Central, and no doubt we'll be talking to you right throughout the season, but it's not that far away.
No, it's not, Brad. It's, practice games three weeks away. If we run into problems, Brad, I'll give you a call.
All right, mate. I'll go running after this and get rid of some of that Christmas pudding for you.
Okay, mate. No worries.
Mark Harvey from the Fremantle Dockers.